Hey, everybody. We made it back again. We are here on a Monday night. Happy Labor Day, everybody. We're here again for another episode of It's TTT, y'all. It's time to talk. And this continues to be a fun way for me to allow you to hear stories of people that I've met throughout my life and friends in my network. And as I always say, I have a big network, but I do believe that God gives us stories to share so that other people can learn from those stories and they can know that they're not the only ones going through it. Technical. And if God did it for them, he can do it for you. So tonight we're talking about Labor Day. Now, for some of you, what Labor Day means is that it's time to stop wearing your white. Okay. Now that's a mama rule. And school will be starting soon, though our school has been quite unusual in this 2020 coronavirus time. But Labor Day was, I found out in some of the research, I did not know that the Pullman porters, and Kirk may go into it a little more, but the strike that they had for better wages and condition was one of the things that ignited Labor Day becoming a national holiday. And that's just one of those pieces in history. We've heard about Pullman porters, but what do children know about how they have come to help them relative to just their very everyday work world? And unions are something that some people don't want to talk about. I think I got a little criticized in my career because, I don't know, I like unions. Unions are okay with me. My first introduction to unions was in the 80s in Houston. And I was with Southwestern Bell, and I was with CWA, Communication Workers Association. And I became a union steward at that time. And one of the things I learned during that time was the type of manager I did not want to be. So I credit a bad manager for making me a good manager. And my next encounter was in the 80s, also the late 80s, when I was on the other side of the ticket or the other side of the table, and I was introduced to ATU, Amalgamated Transit Union. Then later in my career, I was able to work with the Teamsters and ASME. And the one thing that I had in common with the unions is I believe we both wanted what was best for the employees. And then also what was best for the company, because if we looked out for the employees, that means they would do well with the customers, which means the company would do well and everybody would still have a job. And as a manager, one thing that I did know for certain, that as the labor unions got some of the things they wanted, whether we wanted to admit it or not, it also benefited us as supervisors and managers, some of the things that they negotiated for. And tonight I'm dedicating this show to two loyal ATU members that I knew in my career. And one was Oscar Owens, who was an international officer. And the other was Sammy Thompson. I call him my forever treasurer at the ATU Local 1338. But tonight we have the distinct pleasure of talking with a young man who I met, I guess, 20 plus years ago working at DART, but that was just his start, okay? He served as only the second Black man to be president of the Local 1338, which is quite interesting, and we were in the 80s, okay? But I was a first then, so I guess, I don't know, something was up. We were coming up. And he served there for 10 years. And then he went on to the international stage. And now he is the international secretary treasurer for the local ATU. The Amalgamated Transit Union, ATU, the International Canada and United States. Hey, Kirk.
Hey, Gloria. How are you? I'm doing good. How's everyone?
I'm good. Everybody's good. We're just happy to be above ground, as they say. I want to thank you for taking the time to share your all of your insight and all of your wisdom with me. One of the things that I do on the show, I ask people what was their first recollection of me because I have to prove that I know the people who are telling their stories. Okay, so go ahead and tell me what I did. When did you first meet me?
Well, I first met you. I worked in the Oak Cliff division, and you were my manager in my division. So I have no bad recollections whatsoever because, you came after LG Fuller, who was my manager before you. Now, the assistant manager, Harold Walker, was the same. And,
Mm.
he was a people's person. And some people thought maybe he was too much, but I don't agree. Not one bit.
Yeah.
Uh, so my first encounter with you is being my manager. You can, and you know as well as I know that I was one of your better employees. I believe my record reflected that. So
Yeah. I would say that. I would say that. I don't think I ever had to discipline you in any manner. I. It's funny. Oak Cliff is when I first went into Dart was in Oak Cliff Division, and I'll never remember one of the most fun things I did with the union was I think it was B.J. Simmons, Bill Sanders, and Sammy Thompson were standing in the middle, where the buses were parked. Well, they were standing out there. So I don't know. I'm sure I had on pink or something. And I just walked myself right up there in the middle of them and start talking. And they kind of looking like, okay, where'd she come from? But the one thing, and like I always say, Bill Sanders, I call him my adopted dad. They used to call me little sister because I was younger than all. They were all old enough to be my daddy. So they said, "We got you. We're gonna take care of you." Like, okay, But I have to say, we did. We had a decent relationship going along because, like I said, my concern was employees and the company. But I believe in the golden rule, as they say, treat people like you want to be treated. So it worked out okay. It worked out okay.
Want me to remind you of one of your bold moves that I couldn't believe, and we were surprised you didn't get in trouble. You remember when we had that $25 bonus, and I had filed a grievance because they took it away, and you looked at it. You agree with me. You was assistant. You was assistant vice president of transportation, I believe, at that time, and you gave us that $25, and you didn't even ask none of the people above you. You said it was good for the employees, and we stood behind you. I remember that. That's a long time ago. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah,
that was a real long time ago.
I remember a few of the things I did that I still had a job afterwards. I don't know how, but prayer works.
We didn't think he was going to there, but we was going to back you up though. 100%. You can believe that. They wouldn't have been happy around there if they would have did anything to you.
Well, one of the funny things that I remember at my going away party, and I don't know why I never forgot it, but one of the things you said, I don't know if it's good or bad. Gloria's leaving and the union membership is going up. So I was like, I always remembered that. So it was, always fun. Like I said, it was, it was a learning experience for me. But the one thing that, like I said, that I always tried to do was, make sure because I always believed that the employees were taken care of, they would take care of the customers, and then that's good for Dart, or whatever company we're talking about. So now we need to know a little bit of your story. Where are you from? How did you end up in transit? And a little bit of how you got to where you are today.
Okay. So I ended up in transit because what happened is when I left school, I needed a job. I come from a family that didn't have a lot, and it was always having to do the best you can to survive. And at some point in time, when grandmother is sacrificing, you need a job. So I thought I had a job somewhere else. Something happens. And my friend Jimmy Drake, I don't know if you remember Jimmy Drake.
Yeah,
we went to junior high school and high school together. And
Okay.
he was on the bus, and he says, go down and see if they'll hire you. So I went down there over there on Peak and Main Street, and I can't remember his name. When the guy in HR, he saw me, he took me over to Oak Cliff right then. I was hired on the spot. They said they had never hired anybody on the spot.
Really?
Yeah, so the guys found me that impressive. So that's how I became a bus driver. Ironically, when I became a bus driver, that naturally wasn't my goal, even though bus driving, can take care of you. You can live a good life doing it. But that wasn't my initial goal. So I had this bright idea that I worked there a couple of years and I just move on up. Well, unfortunately, I ran into the manager before you. And so way back then, whenever you called in sick, they had this rule that you had to call in each day. You were out sick to be paid, right? Now, me being the guy I always was around there trying to make some money. I knew that didn't nobody call in. So Lord bless his soul, the supervisor in charge. I still remember who he is. I ain't gonna say his name since he's deceased.
Oh, okay.
But he woke me up because I had a big mouth, right? I admit it. And so when I went and met with the manager, I almost said his name. He says, but that's what it says in writing. I says, okay, I see it in writing. I said, but you don't enforce this on nobody. Why are you enforcing it on me? So he looks at me. He says to me, it'll teach you a lesson. I said, oh. So naturally, I wasn't happy at all.
Okay.
So what I did was I went and got the personnel manual. And, we had that book out there that says all our rules. Yeah, I learned them to the point to where it was almost like the back of my hand. And I said that anytime I catch management doing anything to anybody, I was going to point it out to them. And then, in fact, if necessary, I was going to file a grievance. So initially, I wasn't so cozy with the union because they thought I was a little radical. And so that started me going toward the union rep. So finally, I became a shop steward around 89 or 90. And then the vice president, Jeff Graham, he quit. So he quit. I ran for his position. I became the vice president. So, and then after that, I thought I did a good job as the vice president, but my president, evidently, he didn't think so, A.J. Robinson. So he decided to run someone against me. So
who went against you that year?
Alan Hirsch. That's who he had to run.
Okay.
Yeah, but I tricked him. I told him because Thomas Hutchinson and Marvin McLemore was telling me I should run for president. But I told him no, I didn't do it. So I ran against him as president. No idea whatsoever I could ever win against him, right? Well, we woke up, I can't remember the exact date, but we woke up and here I was, president of the local union.
New president.
Only 31 years old. Nobody has been there at that position at that young of age. And then had a lot of work to do. The local, most people was not really interested in union, and we didn't have very many members. We had a lot of debt, and we was paying lawyers to do stuff I felt like that we could do ourselves. And I set it as a goal, for one, was to unite the people and organize them. And then the second thing I wanted to do was, pay off the debt. So I started doing arbitrations. That's how I started doing arbitrations. Didn't have a clue. I just went to the library and read whatever I could. I started being able to do them, and that allowed us to get out of this debt with the lawyer. But I was also going out to the members. We had at that time, I don't know if you remember, we had 4 divisions at East Grant.
I remember.
In Northwest. So I set out a goal is just because Oak Cliff was a heavy union division. right?
Mhm.
So it was
Mhm.
no, we didn't have to organize a club. East Dallas previously had been one, but East Grand and Northwest, we was very low. In the maintenance department, we was practically nothing. So I just
Mm.
set up a plan, and we just start organizing, 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 organizing. By the time I got to my fourth term, we was about 1,500 members from like 386.
Mm.
Um, because we were getting bigger, it gave us a chance to have political power and to build power within the community and with the elected officials. And because of the work I was able to do there, I actually became the president of the Central Labor Council.
Mm.
Also the second black person to
Mm.
hold that position. And I held that position. And during that term is when I was promoted to the international. In 2004, I was promoted as a rep in April of 2004. And I guess it was already in the plans because July the 1st, I was appointed to be an international vice president.
Mm.
And that October, I ran at my first convention. And with opposition, I was elected for the first time. And I stayed the vice president until December of last year. Unfortunately, the way I was able to become the international secretary was because the international secretary treasurer, who had been my mentor, Oscar Owens,
Mhm.
he got elected at the convention. That Friday, he got sick and went into the hospital. This was September the 25th. He
Mm.
never he never came home.
Ah, yeah.
And so then he passed, and our general executive board decided that I should assume his position. So now I'm the international secretary treasurer. I'm actually the third black to hold that position. Prior to me was Oliver Green, and then it was Oscar Owens, and then it's myself.
Yeah. How long was Oscar Owens in that position? Do you know just
Uh,
offhand?
20 years.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I
And
remember that because once again, I think it was Sanders that called and told me and said that, because it was the day after his birthday, Sanders' birthday, that he actually passed.
yeah.
So I knew that. What do you think is Texas is a right to work state, and do you
Mhm.
see differences in the unions now that you're working as international? Do you see differences in the unions relative to the territories?
Yes. So there's a big difference between the right to work state, but now because of uh, no, I should know it. The Janus Supreme Court decision, all public employees are now considered right to work, no matter what state. But previously to that, you had the right to work states, you had the closed shop
Oh,
states.
right, right.
So generally, in those states, the legislations, the laws for labor are much employee friendly
Mhm.
than these other states. Like we don't have the right to collectively bargain as public employees
Mhm.
in most of the southern states except for Florida. And then we didn't have a right to necessarily have a closed shop under any conditions.
Mhm.
So it makes it difficult. So part of the biggest difference is in the South, in which our northern and west coast and east coast people are finding out is you have to internally organize your members every day because when they can get in and out of the union, as opposed to
Mhm.
they get out, you have to charge them to do so. So our number one thing is we have to really learn how to represent our members. So the
Mm.
biggest difference is internal organizing and representing your members. I don't know if you remember, I had told you this story one time. I came into your office. You says, Kirk, I respect you, but why are you in here for this? And you remember I had to tell you, I said, well, it's not necessarily that I agree with this. I says, but my obligation is to represent the employee. It's not a matter of whether I think they're right or whether I think they're wrong. I says, if you go back and look at the calendar, you'll see that when I come in here, I'm more aggressive with some
Mhm.
I'm on my knees, right? So,
True. Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and that's the biggest thing with that. And so now I'm the International Secretary of Treasury. It's a new job. It's been different because of COVID. So I
Hmm.
was in the office. I left DC in March. In fact, I'm going up there Wednesday. It'd be the first time I've actually been into the office since March because we've been working,
From home.
remotely from home. I have actually went on two assignments 2 weeks ago. I went to Baton Rouge and I went to Shreveport. So right now that's kind of where I'm at. Um, I don't
So,
think there's nothing we can add.
Secretary Treasurer, what do you do at the locals when you say you had to go to an assignment? What do you do at the locals when you go?
I don't do anything with locals anymore. So in
Okay.
Shreveport, I had an open contract. It was so far along, I agreed to close it out.
Oh,
But
okay.
actually, and I went to Baton Rouge because the company fired all of our officers.
Mm.
And so we were doing, yeah, all the union officers, the president, everybody except for the recording secretary. They have, let's say, they have a very cordial relationship with me. And so we were, even during COVID, we felt this was serious enough. So I went there to support the vice president
Mm.
who was there when, if I was still a vice president, I would have been there, right? Because I worked pretty much all of the South.
Yeah.
And so we went there to picket and to call them names and do a little marching. So I actually, at some point, I won't be doing anything with the local unions except for visiting and assisting them in making sure they follow the rules and regulations as it relates to finances.
Okay.
Because of my new job, I'm technically well in the what you would call somewhere else you would call a chief financial officer. That's actually my
Okay. 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 Um, Now, was ATU your first introduction to unions?
yes, it was. Actually, because I was born in South Dallas. I grew up. I had never heard of a union. The
Mm.
first union I was in was when I started working for the Dallas Transit System, 1985, and the only union I've been in because I've actually never had a other permanent job other than Dallas Transit and the union. Right.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
that's what I've been doing for the last 26 years. I mean, well, if you count my time with driving, it's like 35.
Mhm. I had to look at my thing because I had put in there he's been advocating for employees 30 plus years, and I'm like, let me go back and look. Is that right? And I say, somebody getting old, but it ain't me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm getting old, but that's I'm getting old because at one time I was the youngest vice president on staff.
Mm,
Now there's probably at least 10 people younger than I am. So
yeah, yeah.
I am getting old.
Yeah. But and I try to talk to people because now, when we see the 30-year olds and, those people in positions and stuff, it's like, okay, that's how old we were in those positions. So we can't be looking bad at them, because they're just
Yeah.
doing what we're trying to do, trying to, get ahead and, do what's necessary. So, yeah. Now, on to some of the things today. Um, have the union, have y'all been doing anything to support like the postal workers that are in this uh, chaos? I'll just call it chaos that's going on now.
Yeah,
Have, have y'all been doing anything to support them?
yeah. We've had. I know here in Dallas, we've had a couple of caravans. That's what we do now. We get in cars and ride around and go ride around the office building. So
Okay.
you know, because of COVID,
Mm.
and we've actually have in the Hero Bill we're legislating and fighting. So we have the AFL-CIO. That's our political arm of the unions who are affiliated. Some of our unions, like Teamsters, um, they're the big Teamsters and the purple folks that I can't think of their name, but they right now, but they're the larger locals. They're not affiliated with us. So
Okay.
the FLCIO, we collectively work together. So the FLCIO, we've been having uh, events, and we've been writing, and we've also been advocating legislatively. If the Heroes Act were to pass, the post office will be taken care of. But
Mm,
it don't look like that's going to
that's
happen. It's
mm,
looking tough anyway.
yeah, yeah. So on the lighter side, okay. What's been the, let's see, I don't know if funniest is the word, but the most challenging, maybe, case that you've dealt with or had to defend?
Uh, well,
I got a funny one. Okay, wait, let me tell you this one. I don't know if you remembered. I'm not going to say who it was, but there was an operator who filed a grievance, and basically on the way to work, he fell off his motorcycle into a hole, and he got up after he had been knocked out, and then he got up. Somebody brought him to work, and he was late, but he didn't want to lose out. I ain't gonna say who it was, but
yeah.
none of them got to lose out.
And
Okay.
I get a lot of those, but I would say uh, the most challenging cases is always, involving drugs.
Mm,
So I've had two cases where the operator was involved in accidents. One in one here in Dallas, and one in Jacksonville, Florida, where we
mm,
have local 1197. In this particular case, the driver, who was a very experienced driver, I mean, his record was impeccable. I mean,
mm,
there was absolutely nothing. But I don't know if you're familiar with Jacksonville, but they have a transit transfer center downtown,
mm.
and and when you turn in there, the sun came down on the operator, and the operator couldn't see. So the the left side window hit the guy and knocked the guy down, and the tires of the bus ran over the guy, and the guy
Oh,
was killed. Yeah,
woo.
and they terminated him, right?
Mm,
But during my I was a vice president. I was doing arbitrations for this local. When I went and looked at the tape, I kept seeing the light, the sun, and
mm,
then I went out there. So the driver, because the guy ran across the street and he wasn't in the crosswalk,
mhm.
never saw him, and it was purely an accident because somehow or another, from the way the guy came, the the mirror hit him. So therefore, at no time during the driver's time did he ever see that person, not
Mhm,
at all. And
mhm.
so it was kind of made out to be an issue because we were fighting for this guy's job and somebody died. But our position was is that it was not.
The operator.
Yeah. And I had one that was similar where the guy fell under the bus right down there at Griffin and Main Street at the lineup. And the
Mhm,
operator, we have to take the drug test, right?
mhm.
So the operator took the drug test and he failed the drug test, and he would have been terminated. Where the only problem was that I discovered is that the supervisor took the guy for the drug test because he determined that the victim was deceased. So after the victim was deceased, he was okay. But because the coroner had not ruled the guy was deceased,
Mhm,
well, he couldn't take him for a drug test. So
mhm.
I won the guy's case in arbitration on a technicality because he took him about he took him about 20 minutes too soon.
Uh, uh.
That was probably my two most challenging and difficult cases, mostly because it was a murder. But
Yeah.
one of the biggest things I've ever done was I wouldn't represent someone,
Mm,
uh, and this guy had got his job back. He was fired for accidents, and you know him. He
Okay.
worked. He worked in East Dallas, and he lived out by White Rock Lake. And you might remember who he might be. But anyway, this guy he comes to the office, and he wasn't in the union, but he joined, and I represented him, and I was able to get his job back. Well, right after I got his job back, not even 4 weeks later, he had another accident. And so he got fired because he was technically, that was like his fifth, right?
Uh-huh.
So he comes to my office and I said, you might need to have your eyes checked. I said, because these accidents you're having, they shouldn't be happening.
Uh-huh.
And he went off.
Oh.
He told me that he could see fine. He admitted to me that he was intoxicated when he had those accidents.
Wow.
So I told him I can't represent him. I said, because if he was driving that 14 Lego, I said, next time you're gonna kill some of my kids. So I will never forget this. So he filed a grievance to the next step without the union. Victor Burke was going to give him his job back, right? And Victor called me and says, Ken, I want to know why you weren't representing. And I told him, well, I have to represent this guy. I refuse to represent him. The only thing I'm going to tell you, if I refuse to represent him, then that means I didn't feel like he needed to be represented. You can do whatever you want. And then he changed his mind. And this guy, he got sent home where he needed to be. Drinking and driving in the bus, that's a no-no. So unions were not all bad, okay?
No, and something you said earlier was what I learned, as time went on, the degree to which you represented someone showed what you thought relative to it. There are the words you say, and then there are the words you feel and say. And so it was easy to understand after that, you have an obligation to represent, but to the degree that you do it is what makes the difference in the case. So it was easier to see than others. Yeah.
And that's one of the differences between the other sections where people have to be in the union. Well, they may not have to represent people that I have to represent because I have to keep my membership up. So they think they pay their dues. They think I'm their lawyer, which I keep trying to tell them I'm not. But that's another subtle difference between us.
Yeah.
Right to non-right to work.
Yeah. What is Canada any different? Is Canada?
Canada, everything in Canada is open shop, but their parliament, as we speak right now, is trying to enact laws. So we're in a big fight in Canada right now. We have a conservative parliament up there right now, so we're fighting.
Go figure. Now, the other thing we're dealing with in this space and time is systematic racism.
Correct.
And I know, not even talking about the companies, because I know Sanders always tells me one story about, boy, I ain't gonna ride with you. That's a story I'm gonna write about him. But anyway, this passenger didn't want to ride with him because he was black and he was the only one out there on the route. He kept coming around and it was raining. He said he wasn't riding with him. He's like, he got off. And so he said, I don't remember who he said took his trip. He don't know if the man was still standing there or not, but that's another side. But within the union, there had to be some things going on that you can discuss that's not, incriminating to you in any manner.
Well, first thing I'll point out to you is that the driver that told Rosa Parks to go to the back was an ATU member.
Really?
Yeah, because we represent. In fact, I actually was working their contracts in Montgomery, Alabama. Yeah, so that's something that we're not very proud of. But if you ever go to the where Martin Luther King, the museum, and if you go in there, you can see the driver, and it'll be clear to you that
he's an ATU member.
Yeah. So
Rosa,
that,
the back.
well, that's one thing, but in the transit industry, um, as it relates to union, on a local level, naturally, I didn't experience any because over 80% of our members and employees were Black, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
You
the
wait a minute, but you were in Dallas, Texas. You didn't experience any
from but you
union
speaking.
members?
Well, I experienced some outside of the ATU, which I was so
Okay.
now. Remember, I told you I became the president of the Central Labor Council, and that's all of
Mm-hmm.
the affiliated local unions, like original, where we meet. And one thing that happened to me, I will never forget it. It actually shocked me. And this was like 2001.
Mm.
So when I was elected president, one of the executive board officers, who was a member of the plumbers and pipe fitters, he stood up in front of the whole group and said, I resign at this time. He said he
Mm.
could not serve under the leadership of a Black man, which didn't really make sense because I was the vice president before I became the president. But I guess I could be the vice president, but I could not be the. But I've had some other experiences, like I was conducting an organizing drive in Pittsburgh,
Mm-hmm.
and I was holding a meeting for all the members to come to because they was trying to have what is called a decertification. That's where members get out of the union. But it was the terminal workers at Greyhound. So the president in Pittsburgh happened to be a white guy, nice guy. And so we went to the meeting, and I was standing at the front of the door, and people just walked right by me. People who look just like me walked right by me. So then, he goes up there to the mic, and he says, I need to introduce y'all to the national vice president. So they look, and then I walk up to the mic, and then they go like, why he didn't say that? And I'm going like, you walked right by me. Why did I have to tell you who I was? You assumed that it was two people here to conduct a meeting. One of them was Black, one of them was white. You automatically assume that the person who was the vice president was a white person. And then, the other thing is there's always unfortunately there's a double standard, in anything that, I think that we get doubted and penalized quicker than my colleague who maybe don't even do as much. And, I tell all the young people that come on the staff, just make sure you do your job, because you don't want to. Here's what comes up in conversations, even to this later day. If Kenneth Kirk is a poor international vice president, they say Black people are people even within our staff. But if John over here is a bad vice president, it's John. And so those are some of the things you see. Now there's a lot of like in the trades, there was a lot of discrimination because those were good jobs.
Yeah.
And systematically, with being a plumber, being an electrician, those were things that we were denied until very recently. I've been an officer. The doors have been open where people can have access to becoming a master mechanic or plumber. Whether people realize it or not, these people on average make more money than a lot of lawyers and a lot of doctors. I don't know if you had your electricity fixed on the weekends when you got to pay double time and a half. Yeah, they got good contracts too, but that's pretty much my experience. I hadn't had a lot, but then I'm kind of easygoing, and a lot of aspects I just look over because I've been experiencing it for a lifetime, right?
So now, but you were talking about the trade. So do you think some of that has cleaned itself up, or? I mean, are they
Well,
still
I
different
know
challenges?
particularly, I know particularly within the IBEW, where now we have quite a few journeyman mechanics going through the programs.
Okay.
Uh, the building trades is so because mostly we're dealing with brown people who like to do that type of work for some reason or another. I don't know why black people don't think that work they should be doing, but so my understanding is that there's more opportunity because they was like when I was the president of the council, I used to complain about the diversity that wasn't there, and then the people who were given opportunities, I felt like they were being helpers longer than they should have been because you have to be a helper to do the grunt work before you can become a journeyman, and then before you become a master. And when you become a master, yeah, you can live a good life, a real good life.
Yeah. So, Mr. Kirk, any wisdom you want to convey? Anything you got to leave us with? You want to talk to people in management or your union members or?
Well, what I would leave people is that the most important thing in union business is communication.
Mm,
I know that the success I had was a result of all the many people who surrounded me.
mm,
And what I always sought was people who could communicate
mm.
because you can teach them everything else. But if a person can't communicate, it's so difficult thing for you to teach.
Yeah,
So on our side of the table, I try to teach people how to communicate, not only with your members, but with management and be respectful. And you can be stern and never have to call somebody out their name. On
yeah,
the other hand, I think management has a challenge. Even in my previous position,
mm,
um, when we would go in and meet with management, a lot of managers can't get over the fact that they think we're bus operators, mechanics, and customer service folks. And so, what I would tell management is that I'm the person you have to communicate with. So you got to have some type of respect for me. Because if you don't, all we're going to do is, and that does nobody, any good. So I always stress that you got to have communication. And the other thing with management is that they have to be consistent.
yeah,
And it's being consistent is important. But here's what I don't want to get confused with. Being consistent doesn't mean that you're rigorous or
right,
have rigid rules and
yeah,
that's all you follow. Now I
yeah,
know people who like to be consistent that way and it's unsuccessful.
yeah,
What what's consistent is if I got an employee for 25 years, there's nothing ever happened with them, nothing. And they make a mistake, unless it's so egregious that you have to let them go, I think
mm,
you should work with that employee. On the other hand, you have to look at employees who are always in trouble,
mm,
always. So the rules can be forced on them also, but
mm,
you're still being consistent because hardly ever is there the same exact circumstances. But
yeah,
when they're similar, I think you got to be flexible. You got to
yeah,
be open to trying different things. And in my experience, I've always been able to work with managers. And the key is
mm,
that if you don't put it in writing, you can work out things and then put that into writing. But once you use somebody or something and write it,
uh,
it's hard for either party to get out of their positions. And when we get into our position, there's no opportunity to work things out, right? So that would be the thing that I would tell them as far as if there's anybody on here who's young, they can see that if you work hard, be patient. Um, like I never expected to be above a local union president. I never expected it. The I was approached by someone else who
Mhm.
felt like I should be just like even in the position I'm in now. Again, people tried to get me to challenge Oscar,
Mhm.
and I told them that I wouldn't do it, but I was just patient.
Yeah.
Now, he almost outlived uh, the time that I was going to be here because but I didn't wish nothing bad on him because, like I say, he was my mentor. He's partially responsible for me being here, but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Well, I agree with what you say about the consistency is important because one, uh, people can count on what's going to occur. If you're
correct.
inconsistent, then depending on who you are, well, this
Mm,
might happen or that might happen. And then
correct.
also what you said about the legalistic piece of it. You
Correct.
legalistic, you can
Yeah.
legalistic your way out, and hurt the company relative to it. So there has to be some flexibility, and
Yeah.
waiting. The young people, as you say, working hard and just you never know who's watching. Like you say, people
Correct.
approach you. You never know who's watching what you're doing or who God has placed in their minds something for you that you have no idea. So just do you be good at what you do and do your job like you say. And I think that's where what happens.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
you can expect things and try too hard and step on people going up, and the same people you step on going up, you'll see them coming down.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I know if there's union people on here, they wouldn't probably like what I'm about to say, but I could assure you, even the managers who may not have personally liked me, and I would tell every union rep, this is how you should be remembered. They believe I have integrity.
Hmm.
They believe I have character. And whether we leave the room in a disagreement or not, they know that if I tell them something, that's what I mean. And I'm also willing to listen to what they have to say. I'm hard headed and stubborn, but
Hmm.
hey, that's that's what kept me through. So I just uh, let me be quiet before I start repeating myself. I think that's about it.
That's but I forgot who I was talking to, but that's one of the things that's missing in our world today, and I'm trying not to get started on it, is agreeing to disagree and still
Yeah.
having that respect for, you know, you can disagree with somebody, but you don't have to call them out of their name and this and
Yeah.
that, all
Or
that.
be mad at them.
Yeah, or even be mad at them. Right, right. And we have lost that so much today. It's just crazy. You're not
Yeah.
teaching people how to communicate and have differences of opinion and move on, and like you say, not hate somebody because they think different. God gave us all brains.
But
But I hope we can get back to that at some point.
yeah. Well, here's the biggest thing. Like when I first became a vice president and started negotiating contracts, I didn't have to check the other person's work. When they
Mm.
give me a piece of paper, I never had to double check it. That's one of the biggest problems today, and one of my biggest frustrations. Now you got people, they do anything to win. They try to trick you. They sign a document and switch them. And I'm going like, really? Really?
No integrity.
Yeah, but here's the problem. We're going to meet again. You may think we may not, because even though I'm pretty much work the South, but occasionally I go all over the United States, right? And I don't understand how you can't trust people, and everybody does. Uh, they'll do anything to win, and I won't. I won't do anything to win, and and I don't want to take advantage of people that I got to look them in their face, and
Mhm.
people don't actually they don't care,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and my number one pet peeve now is the phones.
Mm.
People they record you. They got apps. As soon as they call you, they start recording you. So you can't really have a conversation. You can't express yourself to 100%. Just say the things that you need to do to maybe get to a medium.
Yeah.
You know, you can't do that because you don't know if they're recording you.
Right.
And then they put you on speakerphone, they don't tell you. I mean, so that's the difficult part that's different today. But it's not everybody, but it's enough that it gets on your nerves.
Yeah. And enough to make you cautious.
Yeah. And make you want to retire too.
Well, you keep talking about that now. You got to serve some time in this office now.
I agree with that.
Huh?
I agree with that.
Okay. A few years you can hang in there a little bit. You know, you'll be all right. They need you for it until look, you got to groom a few people to do stuff. So, you know, you gotta work at it. So Kirk, I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on and hanging out.
Thank you for letting me come on, and nobody mess it up too bad for you, but I tried my best.
Ain't no stress here. I'm just having fun. So this was fun. But one of the things I do is I pray for my guests before I leave. And so I'll do that for you at this moment, if you'll allow me.
Sure.
God, I just thank you for this time. I thank you for this opportunity. I thank you for Kirk and all that he's done and all that he's going to do, Father. I just pray that you would give him wisdom. I pray that you would protect him during this time of pandemic. And I just pray that everywhere he goes, you'll order his steps and help him in the things that he's trying to do to better things for employees around the country and in Canada and wherever, Father. So keep him on his path until you decide it's time for him to sit down and take a rest, which he'll probably never do. But thank you for all those he's helped, Father. And may they understand the sacrifices that he's made and that the family's made for him to do what he does. God bless him, keep him. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, y'all that are on here, one thing I have to remind you about the census. Now, they were talking about that they were changing, the date was October 31st, and somewhere it changed to September 30th. So, but I heard there was something filed, but long story short, y'all go fill out the census. I think I read today 84% have completed the census. And only 19% of that was done by census takers. So the majority of the people have gone online, mailed it in, or done it on the telephone. So go to 2020census.gov. This is about the things you get. This is about your representation, the amenities that you get in your community. So please go out and fill the census. 84%, that's not even 90%. So let's at least make it 90%. Or you're going to have somebody come knocking on your door. And you know, in this pandemic, you don't want somebody come knocking on your door. So let's fill out the census. My other peeve is, what are we going to do when we all vote? Okay, up in your right-hand corner. See, I don't know what I'm doing. That right hand over there. The right-hand corner of the screen is a QR code. You can scan that QR code and it would take you directly to where you have to go to register to vote, to check and see if your address is good, to see where your poll is, all that information. So if you have the camera, scan the QR code and it will take you to where you need to go to register, correct your address or whatever. And don't forget to take somebody with you. The deadline for registering is October 5th to be able to register to vote on November 4th. And so let's get it done. And I appreciate y'all being here tonight. Next week, we're going to have two of my friends who have dealt with lupus. And I call them the poster kids for lupus because they have done all the things right. They are in good health and they're thriving as they battle lupus, which is a treacherous disease. So thank you, Kirk. Thank you, everybody. And all I have to say is good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.